Hi guys, welcome back. Tonight, we are going to let the world outside fade away into a soft, distant hum. We are going to go on a very slow journey through time, back to the very beginning of how we, as humans, learned to live with the earth. This is a journey through ancient horticultural wonders. We are going to visit the gardens that our ancestors built, not just for food, but for the quiet of the heart. We will look at spaces created for beauty, for power, for spirit, and most of all, for peace. So, just settle in, let your shoulders drop, and listen to the sound of the wind in leaves that grew thousands of years ago. Before there were cities, before there were roads, there was only the wild. Imagine a time when the world was an endless stretch of forest, mountain, and plain. Humans lived within this vastness, always moving, always watching. But even then, in the deep silence of the prehistoric world, there was a feeling of finding a certain grove where the light fell just right through the canopy. A feeling of sitting by a spring where the moss was thick and soft, and the air felt cooler than anywhere else. These were the first gardens, though no one had built them yet. They were the places where the wild felt kind. Slowly, over many lifetimes, humans began to want to keep that feeling close. They began to realize that they could talk to the earth. They began to understand that if they cleared a few stones away, the grass grew sweeter. If they protected a certain fruiting vine from the wind, its leaves became broader and its shade became deeper. This was the start of a long, slow friendship between the human hand and the green world. It wasn't a sudden change. It was a gradual thinning of the barrier between us and the nature around us. It was the birth of the idea that a space could be shaped for the purpose of stillness. Imagine a person standing at the edge of a wild thicket. They see the beauty there, but they also see the chaos. They see the thorns and the tangled brush. And in their mind, they begin to imagine something different. They imagine a line, a straight path. They imagine a circle of trees that creates a room made of wood and leaf. They want to bring the wildness inside a wall, not to trap it, but to protect the peace it gives them. This is why we started to garden. We wanted to take the best parts of the earth, the scent of a bloom, the sound of water, the coolness of shade, and hold them in a place where the world couldn't reach them. Think about the first time a wall was built around a garden. It was usually a simple thing, perhaps made of mud bricks dried in the hot sun. But when you stepped through the gate of that wall, everything changed. Outside, the world might be dusty, loud, and unpredictable. But inside, there was order. There was a sense that someone had thought about where your feet would fall. There was a sense that the water was flowing exactly where it was meant to go. This transition from the chaos of the wild to the quiet of the garden is one of the oldest comforts we have. When you enter an ancient garden in your mind, the first thing you notice is the change in the air. It feels heavier, cooler, and filled with the breath of living things. You hear your own footsteps, very slow and steady, on a path of packed earth or smooth, grey stone. There is no hurry here. The garden does not know how to hurry. It only knows how to grow, one cell at a time, one leaf at a time, towards the light. The early gardeners understood this rhythm. They didn't have the tools we have now. They had their hands, and they had wooden spades, and they had the sun. They worked with the seasons, not against them. They knew that if you plant a seed today, you might not sit in its shade for 20 years. And that was okay. There was a deep, quiet satisfaction in planting something for the future. It was a way of saying that peace would continue long after they were gone. As you walk deeper into this ancient sanctuary, you see the way the water moves. Water is the heart of every ancient garden. In the dry lands of the East, where the first great gardens were born, water was a miracle. The gardeners learned how to capture it from the mountains and lead it through long, narrow channels made of stone. This water doesn't rush. It flows with a soft, liquid murmur, a sound like a secret being whispered over and over again. It moves in straight lines, reflecting the blue of the sky and the green of the palms. Listen to that water. It is a constant, gentle pulse. It fills the small pools and overflows into the next, creating a ladder of sound. Each drop that falls is a tiny note of music. Around these pools, the plants are lush and dark. There are lilies floating on the surface of the water, their petals so white they almost seem to glow in the shadows. There are ferns that dip their fronds into the cool stream, drinking deeply, their leaves shivering ever so slightly in the breeze. The scent of this place is different from anything else. It is the smell of damp earth, which is a heavy, grounding smell. It is the smell of crushed herbs, rosemary, mint, and thyme releasing their oils as the sun warms them. And it is the smell of flowers that only open when the air grows still. It is a perfume that doesn't shout. It lingers, wrapping around you like a soft blanket. In these early spaces, humans practiced the art of control, but it was a gentle control. They wanted to create a mirror of paradise. They believed that if they could make a space perfect enough, the gods would come down to walk there. They planted trees in rows, creating long alleys of shadow. When you walk down one of these alleys, the light filters through the leaves in patches of gold. The ground beneath your feet is dappled, shifting slowly as the branches move above you. There is a profound silence in these gardens. It isn't the silence of emptiness, but the silence of life happening very slowly. You can almost hear the sap rising in the trunks of the trees. You can hear the hum of a single bee as it moves from one blossom to another, its wings a tiny vibration in the stillness. This is the silence of order. Everything is in its place. The world is safe. The world is balanced. The people who built these gardens spent hours just sitting. They didn't sit to achieve anything. They sat to be. They sat to watch the way the shadow of a sundial moved across the grass. They sat to listen to the wind moving through the tops of the cypress trees, a sound like the distant ocean. They understood that the garden was a teacher. It taught them that beauty requires care. It taught them that life is a cycle of blooming and resting, of greening and fading. As we move through the history of these places, we see how the gardens became more complex, yet the feeling remained the same. Whether it was a small courtyard in a desert home or a vast royal park, the goal was always the same: to create a piece of the world that felt like a breath of fresh air, a place where you could close your eyes and feel the weight of the day lift from your chest. Imagine the feeling of your hand touching the trunk of an ancient olive tree. The bark is rough, silvered by time and sun. It feels warm, holding on to the heat of the afternoon. This tree has been here for hundreds of years. It has seen generations of people come and go, all of them seeking the same thing. They all came here to find the stillness that you are feeling now. The tree doesn't care about their worries or their names. It only offers its shade. It only offers its presence. In the gardens of the past, there was a great love for geometry. Humans found peace in straight lines and perfect circles. They planted hedges to define the edges of the world. They created squares of flowers, each color carefully chosen to complement the next. This order was a way of pushing back against the wild uncertainty of life. Inside the garden, there were no storms that could not be weathered. There were no paths that led nowhere. Every walk was a journey back to the center of oneself. Think about the sound of a wooden gate creaking on its hinges as it closes behind you. That sound marks the boundary. Once you are inside, the air changes. The temperature drops by a few degrees. The light becomes softer, filtered through layers of green and gold. You breathe deeper here. The air is rich with oxygen and the scent of living things. Your heart rate slows down to match the pace of the garden. There is a sense of timelessness in a garden. Because the plants follow the sun and the moon, they do not care about the ticking of a clock. In an ancient garden, the past and the present are the same thing. The rose that blooms today is the same kind of rose that bloomed for a queen 3,000 years ago. The water that flows through the stone channel is the same water that has always fallen from the sky. When you are here, you are part of that long, unbroken chain of life. The gardeners of old were also poets. They didn't just plant trees. They planted meanings. A cedar tree might represent strength and endurance. A lily might represent purity. A pomegranate tree, with its bursting red fruit, might represent abundance and the mystery of life. Walking through the garden was like reading a story without words. Every leaf was a letter, every path was a sentence, and every clearing was a pause in the narrative. As you walk further, the path begins to climb slightly. You find yourself on a small terrace overlooking a lower part of the garden. From here, you can see the pattern of the whole place. You can see the way the paths cross at right angles, creating a perfect cross. This was a common design in the very first gardens of the Middle East. It represented the 4 rivers of life, flowing out to the 4 corners of the world. It was a map of the universe, shrunk down so that a human could walk through it. The moon rises higher now, casting a silver glow over the dry, cracked earth beyond the garden walls, but inside, the miracle of water continues its soft, rhythmic song. To understand the first true wonders of the horticultural world, we must travel to the places where the sun is a golden weight upon the land. Imagine a world of vast, shimmering horizons, where the air is thick with heat, and the ground is the color of toasted grain. In these ancient, thirsty lands, the garden was not just a luxury. It was a transformation. It was the victory of life over the void. Think about the first people who looked at a river and saw a lifeline. They lived in the valleys of the Tigris and the Euphrates, or along the winding lifeblood of the Nile. They saw the water rushing past, heading toward the sea, while the land just a few yards away remained parched and brown. And then a thought began to form, a thought as slow and steady as the rising tide. What if the water could be invited to stay? What if we could lead it, gently, by the hand, into the places where the sun had ruled alone? This was the beginning of early irrigation, the first true conversation between human intent and the flow of the earth. Imagine the sound of a wooden spade biting into the dry soil. It is a dull, rhythmic thud. One scoop of earth, then another, then another. Long, straight lines began to appear across the landscape trenches and channels that reached out from the river like the fingers of a hand. These were the first veins of the garden. When the water first entered these channels, it must have been a sound like no other. A low, gurgling hiss as the parched earth drank its fill, followed by the soft, liquid music of a steady stream. This was the birth of the controlled water channel, the canot and the canal. These were not just functional ditches. They were the architecture of peace. In the ancient mind, water was precious beyond measure. To see it flowing in a straight line, contained by stone or clay, was to see the chaos of the world being tamed into beauty. Imagine walking beside one of these early channels. The water is clear, moving over a bed of fine silt or smooth pebbles. It makes a tiny, constant murmur, a sound that says, "Life is here, life is here, life is here." As you walk, you notice how the world changes within just a few steps of the water. The ground becomes softer. The air becomes heavier with moisture. And then the green begins dart first. It is just a thin fringe of emerald moss at the water's edge. Then the tall, feathery stalks of papyrus and reeds begin to sway in the breeze. And then come the trees. In the dry lands, the tree is a sacred thing. It is a pillar that holds up the sky. The early gardeners planted date palms in long, majestic rows. The palms grew tall, their trunks scarred with the patterns of old growth, their fronds spreading out like giant green feathers against the blue dot. Think about the shade of a palm tree. It is not like the solid, heavy shade of an oak. It is a dappled, moving shade. It is a filter that breaks the harshness of the sun into thousands of small, dancing pieces of light. When you stand beneath a palm, you feel the wind moving through the fronds high above you. It is a dry, clattering sound, like soft rain falling on a roof, even when there isn't a cloud in the sky. This sound, combined with the gurgle of the water at your feet, creates a cocoon of safety. In these early gardens, survival and calm were the same thing. To be in the shade was to survive. To be near the water was to survive. But the humans of the ancient world wanted more than just survival. They began to plant for the scent. They brought in the citrus trees, with their glossy dark leaves and their blossoms that smelled like honey and starlight. They brought in the vines, training them to climb over wooden trellises so that the grapes hung down like heavy, purple jewels, cool to the touch. The garden became a place where the senses were cradled. The harshness of the desert was forgotten. Outside the wall, the wind might be carrying dust and grit, but inside, the wind was washed clean by the leaves. The smell of the garden was the smell of damp earth, of blooming jasmine, and of the sweet, dusty scent of the palms. It was a smell that promised rest. Slowly, the gardens grew more complex. The channels of water were lined with blue tiles that made the water look like a fallen piece of the sky. Small pools were built at the junctions of the paths, where the water would pause for a moment, creating a perfect mirror. If you lean over one of these pools, you see your own face, framed by the green leaves and the distant stars. You see how still the water is. It is so still that it looks like a sheet of glass, until a single leaf falls from a branch and creates a series of perfect, expanding circles that ripple toward the edge. The repetition of the water is what makes these gardens so hypnotic. The water flows from a higher pool to a lower pool. It falls with a soft, splashing sound. Then it flows along a channel. Then it falls again. It is a cycle that never ends. It is a pulse. It is the heartbeat of the garden. As you listen to it, your own pulse begins to slow down. You begin to breathe in time with the water. In, out, flow, fall. In the ancient cities of Mesopotamia, these gardens were elevated. They were built on high terraces so that the cool breezes could reach them. Imagine a mountain made of brick and stone, covered in a forest of green. This was the dream of the desert, to see a mountain of trees rising out of the flat, yellow plain. To the people who lived there, it was a vision of paradise. They called these places paradisa, a word that meant a walled enclosure, a word that would eventually become our word for paradise. When you walk through these high gardens, you are walking through a miracle of engineering and love. Every drop of water had to be lifted, bucket by bucket, or led through clever systems of slopes and pulleys, just to keep the leaves green. This effort was a form of devotion. It was a way of saying that beauty is worth the work. It was a way of creating a sanctuary where the spirit could rest. The shade in these high gardens is deep and cool. The stone floors are chilled by the water that flows beneath them in hidden pipes. When you walk barefoot on these stones, the coolness rises up through the soles of your feet, spreading through your whole body. It is a physical relief, a washing away of the heat and the struggle of the day. You find a spot between two great pillars, where a vine of climbing roses has created a wall of soft, pink petals. You sit down, and the world simply stops. There is no time here. The sun moves across the sky, but inside the garden, the light is always soft. The shadows shift, but the peace remains. You watch a small bird, a flash of blue and gold, as it lands on the edge of a water channel. It dips its beak into the water, takes a tiny sip, and then shakes its wings, sending a spray of diamonds into the air. The bird is not afraid. In the garden, nothing is afraid. The early gardeners knew that by controlling the water. They were controlling the feeling of the space. They made the channels narrow to make the water move faster and sing a higher song. They made the pools wide and shallow to make the water slow down and become a mirror. They used the water to lead your eye and your feet. You follow the silver line of the stream, and it leads you to a grove of pomegranate trees. You follow the sound of a fountain, and it leads you to a hidden bower of lilies. There is a deep sense of order in this. The chaos of the wild river has been turned into the geometry of the garden. This order is comforting. It tells you that there is a place for everything. It tells you that even in a dry and difficult land, there can be a place of abundance and grace. The garden is a promise kept. It is the promise that if you care for the earth will provide a place for you to rest. Think about the silence of the desert at night. It is a vast, echoing silence. But the silence of the garden at night is different. It is a full silence. It is a silence made of many small sounds. The rustle of a palm frond, the click of a seed pod, the distant, musical drip of a fountain. The air is cool now, and the scent of the earth is stronger than ever. It is a rich, dark smell, the smell of life sleeping dot. The ancient people believed that the garden was where the breath of the world was most pure. They believed that by breathing in the scent of the garden, they were taking in the strength of the earth. They spent their evenings walking slowly along the water channels, letting the sound of the flow wash away their worries. They didn't speak much. There was no need for words. The garden was speaking for them. The water continues its journey. From the high terraces, it flows down to the lower courts, nourishing every root and every stem. It is a journey of total generosity. The water gives itself to the trees, and the trees give their shade to the humans, and the humans give their care back to the water. It is a perfect circle, a perfect, slow circle. As you sit in the deepening twilight of this ancient place, you feel the weight of history all around you. You are sitting in a place that has been dreamed of for thousands of years. The desire for this shade, for this water, for this stillness, is part of what it means to be human. We have always reached for the green. We have always sought the cool. The palms above you are now dark, silhouettes against a sky filled with more stars than you have ever seen. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a path of white petals. And here, on the ground, the water channels reflect that celestial path. It is as if the garden is a bridge between the earth and the stars. You are suspended in that bridge, held by the scent of the roses and the sound of the stream. The light of the moon continues to spill over the tops of the high walls. And as we move deeper into these enclosed spaces, the air seems to grow even more still, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath to protect the silence within. In these gardens, the world is divided into perfect halves and quarters. This is the beauty of symmetry, the quiet order that the ancient mind found so healing. Imagine a long, narrow pool of water, so still that it does not look like water at all. It looks like a long, dark mirror laid upon the ground. The edges of the pool are made of smooth, pale marble, cool to the touch, and worn soft by centuries of quiet footsteps. As you walk along the edge of this pool, your movement is slow and deliberate. You do not want to disturb the surface. You do not want to break the reflection of the stars or the silhouette of the cypress trees that stand like silent sentinels on either side. These trees are tall and thin, pointing toward the heavens, and their dark green needles are so dense that they seem to swallow the light. They are planted in perfect rows, creating a sense of rhythm as you pass them. Tree, space, tree, space. It is a visual pulse that matches the steady beat of your heart. In an enclosed garden, the sky becomes a ceiling. You feel as though you are inside a room made of earth and air. This enclosure is what allows the peace to settle so deeply. There are no horizons to worry about. There is no distant road calling you away. There is only here. There is only now. The symmetry of the space tells your mind that everything is balanced. If there is a tree on the left, there is a tree on the right. If there is a flower blooming in one corner, its twin is blooming in the other. This balance creates a feeling of safety, a feeling that nothing can go wrong within these four walls. Think about the way the water sits in these central pools. Unlike the moving channels we saw before, this water has found its home. It has reached its destination. It is perfectly level, perfectly calm. The ancient gardeners loved this stillness because it allowed the garden to become two. Gardens, one on the ground and one reflected in the water. When you look down into the pool, you see the world turned upside down. You see the white blossoms of the fruit trees reaching down into the depths. You see the silver moon floating in the dark water. It is a world of ghosts and shadows, a world that is even quieter than the one you are standing in. You reach a place where two paths cross. At the center of this crossing is a small, circular fountain. It is not a grand, spraying fountain that makes a loud noise. It is a gentle, bubbling spring. The water rises just a few inches above the surface of a stone bowl and then spills over the edges in a thin, glass-like sheet. It makes a sound like a soft, continuous sigh. This is the center of the world. From this point, the paths lead out to the four corners of the garden, but for now, you stay here. You watch the water as it wells up from the center of the stone. It is a symbol of life that never ends, a source that never runs dry. Around the base of this fountain, the ground is covered in tiny, sweet-smelling herbs. When your foot brushes against them, they release a scent that is sharp and clean. It mixes with the heavy perfume of the lilies that float in the still pools nearby. The lilies are white and waxy, their petals open wide to the moonlight. They do not move. They sit on their flat, green leaves, anchored to the bottom of the pool by long, invisible stems. They are the very definition of being still. They do not strive. They do not hurry. They simply exist in the water, perfectly formed and perfectly at peace. As you move slowly along the paths, you notice the way the light and shadow play across the ground. The ancient builders knew how to use the moon. They knew that by planting trees with thin leaves next to trees with thick leaves, they could create a texture of light. You walk through a patch of silver, then a patch of deep black, then silver again. It is like walking through a dream. Your body feels light. Your mind feels clear. The weight of your responsibilities, the noise of your thoughts, all of it is being absorbed by the thick green hedges and the deep, dark soil. The people who walked these paths thousands of years ago moved just as you are moving now. They wore soft robes that brushed against the leaves with a sound like a whisper. They carried no lanterns, trusting their eyes to find the way in the soft glow of the night. They came here to think, or perhaps to stop thinking. They knew that the garden was a place where the soul could expand. Inside the house, life was busy and crowded. But here, under the open sky and within the green walls, there was room to breathe. Imagine the feeling of a leaf falling. It detaches itself from a branch high above. It does not fall straight down. It floats. It drifts on the invisible currents of the cool night air. It turns over slowly, catching the light, then disappearing into the shadow. It takes a long time to reach the ground, and when it finally lands on the surface of the still pool, it creates a single, tiny ripple that travels slowly toward the marble edge. You watch that ripple until it disappears. The garden is a place where a single falling leaf is an event. It is a place where you have the time to notice such things. The silence here is layered. There is the deep silence of the stones. There is the soft silence of the moss that grows between the stones. There is the living silence of the trees, which are busy growing even as they sleep. And then there is your own silence. You find that you do not want to speak. You do not even want to whisper. To make a sound would be to break the spell of the symmetry. You want to remain a part of the reflection. The symmetry of these gardens was a reflection of the heavens. The ancient people believed that the stars moved in perfect, orderly circles, and they wanted their gardens to match that divine order. By creating a space that was perfectly balanced, they felt they were bringing a piece of the eternal down to earth. When you stand in the center of the garden, you are standing at the point where the earth and the sky meet. You are the needle at the center of the compass. Think about the birds that live in this enclosure. During the day, they fill the air with song, but now, in the middle of the night, they are tucked away in the deep hearts of the trees. They are small, warm bundles of feathers, sleeping soundly in the safety of the garden. They know they are protected. The walls that keep out the wind also keep out the predators of the wild. The garden is a sanctuary for everything that lives within it, including you. You can feel that protection. It feels like a soft pressure against your skin, a comforting embrace that tells you it is okay to let go. The path beneath your feet is made of small, crushed river stones. They make a soft crunching sound as you walk, a sound that is grounded and real. It is a reminder that you are still on the earth, even if your mind is drifting among the stars. You follow the path to a small alcove, a semicircle of stone benches built into the wall. Above the benches, a canopy of jasmine has been trained to grow, creating a roof of tiny star-shaped flowers. You sit down, and the scent of the jasmine is so strong it is almost like a taste. It is sweet and intoxicating, the scent of the deep night. From this bench, you can see the entire length of the central pool. The symmetry is perfect. The reflection is perfect. The world is in balance. You realize that this garden was not built for the eyes alone. It was built for the entire body. The coolness of the stone, the scent of the flowers, the sound of the bubbling spring, the taste of the humid air, all of it works together to pull you down into a state of deep, restorative rest. You are no longer an observer of the garden. You are a part of it. You are as much a part of this space as the marble and the moss. As the hours of the night move forward, the colors of the garden shift. The deep greens become black. The silver light becomes a pale blue. The shadows grow even longer, reaching out to touch one another. The garden is changing, yet it remains the same. It has been doing this for 1,000 years, and it will do it for 1,000 more. This permanence is a great comfort. In a world where everything changes so fast, the garden is a constant. The water will always flow. The trees will always grow. The peace will always be here, waiting for anyone who knows how to open the gate. You close your eyes for a moment, and you can feel the life of the garden all around you. You can feel the moisture being pulled up from the earth by the roots of the palms. You can feel the slow opening of the night-blooming flowers. You can feel the cool air settling into the low places, filling the hollows like invisible water. Your breath becomes as slow as the movement of the stars. You are breathing with the garden. In, the scent of jasmine. Out, the release of the day. In, the coolness of the night. Out, the weight of the world. The symmetry of the paths and the pools begins to feel like a pattern in your own mind. The straight lines of the garden are clearing away the tangles of your thoughts. The clarity of the water is clearing away the fog of your worries. You feel organized. You feel orderly. You feel at peace with yourself. This is what the ancient gardeners intended. They knew that we are shaped by the spaces we inhabit. If we spend our time in a space of beauty and balance, we become beautiful and balanced ourselves. You open your eyes and look at the reflection in the pool once more. A light breeze has finally arrived, and the surface of the water is no longer a perfect mirror. It is now a field of thousands of tiny, shimmering diamonds, dancing in the moonlight. The moon hangs suspended in the velvet sky, and the silence of the garden remains absolute, a heavy and comforting blanket that wraps around every leaf and every stone. As we continue this slow journey, we find that these gardens were not only places of physical rest, but spaces built for the spirit. In the ancient world, to plant a garden was to build a temple. Every tree was a prayer, and every flowing stream was a hymn to the unseen forces of life. Imagine walking through a space where the garden has been divided by 4 narrow channels of water, meeting in the center to form a perfect cross. This is the garden of the spirit, where the water represents the 4 rivers of life, flowing out to nourish the 4 corners of the existence. As you move through this sacred geometry, your pace becomes even slower, even more rhythmic. The water in these channels is shallow, barely covering the blue and turquoise tiles that line the bottom. The sound is a constant, gentle purr, a liquid murmur that seems to vibrate in the very air you breathe. This is not the sound of a rushing river. It is the sound of water that is content. It flows with a soft, persistent grace, dividing the green earth into manageable pieces of peace. You step over one of these channels, your foot pausing for a moment above the moving silver, and you feel the coolness rising up to meet you. In these sacred spaces, the shade is more than just a relief from the sun. The shade is a presence. It is a thick, cool layer of living history. Imagine standing beneath a canopy of ancient plane trees, their broad leaves overlapping so perfectly that not a single ray of harsh light can pierce through. The light that does reach you is filtered and green, a soft, subaquatic glow that makes everything seem as if it is underwater. In this green light, the world of the outside, the world of noise, the world of heat, the world of worry simply ceases to exist. There is only the green, the cool, and the quiet. The early people who designed these spaces understood that the body and the soul are one. They knew that if the body is cooled by the shade and the ears are calmed by the water, the spirit will naturally follow. This is the calm as a spiritual presence. It is not an empty quiet. It is a full, resonant stillness. It is the feeling that the garden is listening to you, and you are listening to the garden. You find a place to lean against the trunk of a great tree. The bark is cool and smooth, and as you press your back against it, you can feel the immense, slow life of the tree. It has stood in this exact spot for hundreds of years, drinking the same water, watching the same moon, and holding the same silence. The repetition of the garden's design is a lullaby for the mind. You look down a long alley of trees, and you see the same shadow, the same trunk, the same patch of moss, repeating over and over again until they disappear into the soft mist of the distance. This repetition tells your heart that there is no need to be alert. There are no surprises here. There is only the steady, reliable return of the same beautiful forms. You breathe in and you smell the damp earth. You breathe out and you let go of a thought. You breathe in and you smell the sweetness of the water. You breathe out and you let go of a memory in the center of the garden. Where the four rivers meet, there is often a great, flat stone or a low platform. This was the place where the ancient seekers would sit for hours, doing nothing but watching the light move. Imagine sitting there now. The water flows toward you from four directions, and then it flows away from you. You are at the crossroads of life. You are at the point where all things are balanced. The air here is perfectly still, yet it feels alive. It is a heavy air, saturated with the breath of the thousands of flowers that surround Eulalie, roses and the deep, spicy scent of carnations. The water moves so gently that it does not even disturb the tiny insects that skim across its surface. It is a slow, liquid silk. As you watch it, you realize that this water has been recycled by the earth for millions of years. It is the same water that once ran through the mountains, the same water that once fell as rain on the first forests, and now it is here, in this quiet channel, just to provide you with a moment of peace. The generosity of the water is infinite. It asks for nothing. It only flows. It only cools. It only sings its low, repetitive song. Think about the colors of this sacred space. They are not the bright, jarring colors of the modern world. They are the colors of the earth and the sky. There is the deep, dark green of the cypress, the pale, silvery green of the olive, the dusty brown of the brick, and the endless, shimmering blue of the water. These colors do not demand your attention. They invite it. They allow your eyes to rest, to stop darting from one thing to another, and to finally settle on a single leaf or a single ripple. In the gardens of the spirit, every plant was chosen for its meaning. The rose was for love, the lily for purity, the cypress for eternity. As you walk, you are walking through a living book of wisdom, but you do not need to read it. You only need to feel it. You feel the eternity in the height of the trees. You feel the purity in the clarity of the water. You feel the love in the softness of the grass beneath your feet. The garden is a physical manifestation of everything that is good and permanent in the world. The shade becomes even deeper as you move into a grotto. A small room carved into the side of a hill, covered in hanging vines and moss. Inside, the sound of the water changes. It echoes slightly, becoming a hollow, rhythmic drip-drop. The air is even cooler here, and it smells of wet stone and ancient roots. This is the heart of the earth. In this small, dark space, you are completely hidden. You are like a seed in the ground, waiting, resting, protected by the heavy weight of the mountain above you and the soft carpet of the moss below. You stay in the grotto for a long time, listening to the rhythm of the water. It is a pulse that has no beginning and no end. It is the heartbeat of the world. You feel your own heartbeat slowing down to match it. Drip, drop, beat, beat. Everything is in sync. Everything is one. There is no you and no garden. There is only the sound, the smell, and the cool, dark peace. This is the goal of the horticultural wonder, to lead you back to this state of total connection. When you finally step out of the grotto and back into the moonlit garden, the world feels different. The light of the moon seems brighter, more silver. The scent of the jasmine seems sweeter. You move back toward the central crossing, following the silver lines of the water. The garden is a map of your own internal landscape. By walking through its paths, you have been walking through the paths of your own mind, clearing away the clutter and finding the quiet places that have always been there. The water channels continue to flow, dividing the garden into its 4 sacred quarters. In one quarter, the fruit trees are heavy with ripening peaches and pomegranates. In another, the flowering shrubs are a riot of soft, pale colors. In the third, the tall grasses sway in the night breeze, making a sound like a silk dress brushing against a floor. And in the fourth, there is only open space, a carpet of emerald green, where the moonlight can fall undisturbed. You find yourself drawn to the open space. You walk out into the center of the grass, and you lie down. The grass is soft and cool, and it smells of the afternoon sun that is now long gone. You look up at the sky, framed by the dark silhouettes of the surrounding trees. The trees look like giant hands reaching up to touch the stars. You feel very small, but you also feel very large. You are a part of this garden, and the garden is a part of the earth, and the earth is a part of the stars. The stillness of the garden is not a dead silence. It is a waiting silence. It is the silence of things growing. You can almost feel the blades of grass beneath you pushing upward, just a fraction of a millimeter. You can feel the roots of the trees drinking from the water channels. You can feel the flowers closing their petals for the night. All of this movement is happening in total quiet. It is the great, slow work of the world, and you are right in the middle of it. The repetitions continue. The water ripples against the stone edge. The wind moves the willow branch. The owl calls from the high tower. These sounds do not break the peace. They define it. They are the markers of the silence. You listen to them as if they are the notes of a very slow, very beautiful piece of music. You know exactly what sound is coming next, and that knowledge is a comfort. The garden is a place of absolute certainty in the ancient lands. These gardens were the only places where the noise of the city could be forgotten. Beyond the walls, there were the cries of merchants, the clatter of carts, the dust of the streets. But here, there is only the whisper of the water. The walls are thick, made of heavy stone and earth, and they act as a filter for the world. They let in the light, the wind, and the birds, but they keep out the chaos. You can feel the strength of those walls. They are like arms wrapped around you, keeping you safe in this green and watery world. The shade of the night is a special kind of shade. It is not the absence of light, but the presence of a soft, velvet darkness. In this darkness, your other senses become sharper. You can hear the water from much further away. You can smell the different types of soil, the sandy soil near the palms, the rich black soil near the roses. You can feel the subtle changes in temperature as you move from the open grass to the shelter of the trees. The garden is a sensory experience that never ends. The moon has shifted its position in the sky, casting new shadows that stretch like long, dark velvet ribbons across the marble paths. As we move from the center of the four rivers, we find ourselves drawn to the perimeter, to the long, shaded walks that were built for the sole purpose of moving slowly. In these ancient gardens, walking was not a way to get from one place to another. Walking was a form of meditation. It was a way to let the body lead the mind into a state of total clarity. Imagine a path made of thousands of small, smooth river stones, each one chosen for its shape and its color. As you place your foot down, you feel the gentle pressure of the stones against your soul. It is a grounding sensation, a physical connection to the earth that keeps you present in every single step. The movement is so slow that it barely feels like movement at all. You lift one foot, you feel the cool air around your ankle, and then you place it down, then the other. There is a long silence between your footsteps. In that silence, you hear the world. You hear the rustle of a lizard in the dry leaves at the edge of the path. You hear the distant, rhythmic drip of a water channel. You hear the sound of your own breath, steady and deep. This is the rhythm of the thinker. This is the pace of someone who has nowhere else to be. The gardeners who laid these paths understood that the mind needs a steady, repetitive motion to unlock its deepest peace. They created these walks to be long and straight, so that you do not have to think about where you are going. Your feet know the way. Your body knows the turns. As you walk, the trees on either side of the path create a tunnel of green and silver. These are often fruit trees, lemon, orange, and pomegranate, their branches heavy with the weight of the coming harvest. The leaves are glossy and dark, reflecting the moonlight in a way that makes them look like they are wet with dew. The scent here is different from the center of the garden. It is a sharper, cleaner smell. It is the smell of citrus leaves and cold stone. It clears your head. It makes your thoughts feel as crisp and as bright as the stars above. You find yourself thinking about nothing in particular, just letting your mind drift like a leaf on a stream. You watch a thought appear, you look at it for a moment, and then you let it float away, replaced by the next slow step. The silence between your footsteps is where the garden truly speaks. It is a silence that is full of potential. In the ancient world, philosophers would walk these paths for hours, their robes trailing behind them with a soft, shushing sound. They weren't looking for answers. They were looking for the space where answers could grow. They knew that truth is like a shy bird. If you chase it, it flies away. But if you sit still, or if you walk with a quiet heart, it might just land on your shoulder. You feel that possibility here. You feel that the garden is a vast, open room where your spirit can stretch out and breathe. There are no walls to catch your thoughts, only the endless. Dark sky and the protective canopy of the trees. Think about the texture of the air as you move through it. It is not a uniform thing. In the open patches of the walk, where the moon can reach the ground, the air feels thin and silver. But when you step back into the deep shade of a cluster of cypress trees, the air becomes thick and heavy. It smells of resin and ancient needles. It feels like stepping into a different world, a world of shadows and secrets. You pause in one of these dark patches, letting your eyes adjust to the deeper gloom. You can see the trunks of the trees standing like the pillars of an old temple. They are silent, they are strong, and they are completely indifferent to the passing of time. Their presence is a great comfort. They remind you that you are part of something much larger than your own life. The path begins to curve gently, following the line of a low stone wall. The wall is covered in moss, which feels like damp velvet under your fingertips. You run your hand along it as you walk, feeling the coolness and the life within the green carpet. This moss has its own world, its own tiny forests and valleys, all sustained by the moisture of the garden. It is a reminder that the garden is made of many layers of life, from the giant trees to the smallest microscopic fern. Everything is interconnected. Everything is supported by the same water and the same care. Your footsteps are part of this ecosystem too. They are the heartbeat of the path. As you continue your walk, you come to a small bridge made of a single slab of grey stone. It crosses over one of the narrow water channels. You stop in the middle of the bridge and look down. The water is moving very slowly here, almost as slowly as you are. It carries a few fallen blossoms on its surface, white petals that look like tiny boats. You watch one petal as it hits a small stone and spins in a slow circle before continuing its journey. It is a perfect moment of observation. There is no hurry for the petal to reach the end of the channel, just as there is no hurry for you to reach the end of the path. The journey is the point. The movement is the destination. The silence of the night seems to deepen as you move further from the center of the garden. The sounds of the fountains are now just a memory, replaced by the much subtler sounds of the night. You hear the wind moving through the tall grass in the meadow beyond the trees, a soft, whispering sound like thousands of tiny voices. It is a sound that makes you feel both small and safe. You are tucked away in the heart of the wonder, protected by the walls and the water. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for this walk, for this space, and for the slow, steady rhythm of your own life. The repetition of the steps begins to act like a lullaby. Step, silence. Step, silence. Your mind is becoming very quiet now. The thoughts that were so busy earlier in the day have all gone to sleep. There is only the sensation of the cool air on your face and the solid earth beneath your feet. You are walking through a dream of history. You are walking through the thoughts of people who lived thousands of years ago, people who walked this same path and felt this same peace. Their footsteps are layered beneath yours, a silent chorus of seekers who found their rest in the green. The garden is a place where you can be truly alone, yet you never feel lonely. The trees are your companions. The water is your friend. The moon is your guide. You feel a sense of belonging that is deeper than words. You belong here, in this slow movement, in this quiet reflection. You are a part of the garden's history, a part of its ongoing story of peace. The silence between your footsteps is a gift that you give to yourself, a space where you can simply be without any expectation or any demand. You reach the end of the long walk and find yourself at the edge of a still, dark pool. The water is so clear that it seems to disappear, leaving only the reflection of the stars hanging in the void. You stand at the water's edge, looking down at the twin of the sky. You see the constellations you know, and others that seem to belong only to the garden. The world is perfectly still, not a ripple, not a breath. You are standing at the edge of the universe, and the universe is quiet. You take a long, slow breath, feeling the cool air fill your chest, and then you let it out. A soft sigh that disappears into the night. The walk has changed you. Your shoulders are lower. Your jaw is relaxed. Your heart is beating with a slow, steady power. You have walked away the tension of the day. You have reflected away the shadows of the mind. You are now a vessel for the garden's peace. As you prepare to turn back toward the center, you realize that you don't need to go anywhere. The garden is within you now. The slow movement, the quiet reflection, the silence between the footsteps, all of it is yours to keep. The path back seems shorter, perhaps because you are moving with even more grace. You notice things you missed the first time, the way a certain branch curves toward the water, the way the moss glows a slightly brighter green in the moonlight, the way the scent of the earth changes as you pass a bed of sleeping lilies. The garden is a treasure chest that never empties. Every time you look, every time you walk, you find something new, something beautiful, something that brings you back to your own center. In these ancient horticultural wonders, the walk was the work. It was the way the gardener tended the soul. By providing a place for the feet to move, they provided a place for the spirit to rest. You can feel that wisdom in every stone and every leaf. It is a wisdom that does not need books or teachers. It only needs a path, a moon, and the willingness to be slow. You are being slow now. You are being quiet. You are being present. The cypress trees stand tall as you pass them again, their dark shapes reaching for the stars. They are the guardians of the walk. They have seen 1,000 nights like this one, and they will see 1,000 more. They know that the most important thing a person can do is to learn how to walk in silence. They know that the silence is where the real life happens. You nod to them as you pass, a silent acknowledgement of their ancient guardianship. The water in the channels is still singing its low song, a companion that never leaves you. It follows the path, sometimes hidden by the grass, sometimes visible as a silver line in the dark. It is the thread that binds the garden together, and it is the thread that binds your walk to the earth. You feel its movement in your own blood, a slow, liquid flow that is as old as the world. You are a part of the water, and the water is a part of you. The moon continues its slow arc across the sky, and as we move deeper into the quiet hours, we begin to imagine the life that lived within these walls during the day. For the people of the ancient world, the garden was not just a place to visit. It was a place of daily ritual, a place where the repetition of small, gentle tasks created a foundation of peace. Imagine the morning air just as the first light begins to touch the tops of the cypress trees. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the scent of dew on stone. In these early hours, the routine of the garden begins. It is a routine that has been the same for 1,000 years. It is the routine of the water, the routine of the stone, and the routine of the trimmed plants. Think of the sound of the first water being drawn. It is a rhythmic, hollow sound, the splash of a bucket into a deep, cool well, and the steady creak of a wooden pulley. This water is the lifeblood of the garden, and the act of bringing it to the plants is a slow and sacred dance. The gardener moves from one channel to another, lifting small wooden gates to let the water flow where it is needed most. You can almost hear the soft, liquid hiss as the dry earth drinks. This is the first repetition of the day. The water flows, the earth drinks, and the gardener moves on. It is a cycle of giving and receiving that requires no words, only the steady, patient movement of hands and feet, As you walk in your mind through this morning garden, you see the people who lived here moving with a deliberate slowness. There is no hurry in a garden. To hurry is to miss the opening of a flower or the path of a sunbeam. They move along the stone paths with a quiet purpose. One person might be trimming the boxwood hedges, the small iron shears making a rhythmic snip. Snip, snip that blends into the song of the birds. Another might be sweeping the fallen petals from the marble courtyard, the broom made of bundled twigs making a soft, shushing sound against the stone. These tasks are not burdens. They are meditations. They are ways of staying connected to the rhythm of the earth. The stone of the garden is a silent witness to this routine. During the heat of the day, the stone paths and walls absorb the sun, becoming warm and solid underfoot. The people would sit on these stones, their backs against the sun-warmed brick, and simply watch the time move. In the ancient world, time was not measured by the ticking of a clock, but by the movement of a shadow across a sundial or the changing light on a pool of water. Time moved slowly, like the growth of a vine. You could spend a whole afternoon watching the shadow of a palm tree stretch across the grass, and that afternoon would be considered well spent. There was a deep understanding that to be still is to be productive in the ways that matter for the soul. As the sun rises higher, the garden becomes a refuge of shadow and light. The repetition of the architecture, the rows of pillars, the arches covered in climbing roses, the straight lines of the water channels creates a sense of order that calms the mind. Every day, the light hits the same marble bench at the same hour. Every day, the water reaches the same pool at the same pace. This reliability is a comfort. It tells the people that the world is stable. It tells them that despite the changes in the world outside, the garden remains. The trimmed plants, kept in their perfect shapes by the gardener's hand, are a symbol of this control. They are nature and human thought brought together in a silent green harmony. Imagine the sound of footsteps on the gravel during the heat of the noon hour. They are slow, seeking the shade of the long colonnades. The air is thick with the scent of sun-warmed herbs, rosemary, thyme, and lavender. This is a time for quiet reflection, for sitting by the water and letting the coolness of the spray touch your skin. The repetition of the fountains, the constant drip, drip, splash of the water, acts as a background to the thoughts of the day. People would gather in the shade to speak in low voices, their words few and carefully chosen, or they would sit in total silence, the only movement being the slow rise and fall of their breath. The daily life of the garden was built around these moments of stillness. Even the work was a form of rest. To weed a bed of lilies is to be close to the earth, to feel the texture of the soil and the strength of the roots. To pick a pomegranate is to feel the weight of the fruit and the smoothness of its skin. These are physical realities that ground the spirit. In the ancient world, there was no separation between the holy and the mundane. To care for the garden was a holy act. To walk the paths was a holy act. To sit in the shade was a holy act. The routine was the prayer. As the afternoon fades into the golden hour, the garden begins to change its character. The light becomes softer, turning the white marble to gold and the green leaves to a deep, dark emerald. The routine of the evening begins. The water gates are closed, the tools are put away, and the garden is prepared for the night. This is a time for the final walk of the day, a slow circuit around the perimeter to ensure that all is well. The gardener touches the leaves, checks the moisture of the soil, and watches the first stars appear in the reflection of the pool. It is a moment of total presence, a quiet checking in with the world. The stones begin to release the heat they have held all day, creating a gentle warmth that rises from the ground. This warmth meets the cooling air of the evening, creating a soft, misty atmosphere. The repetition of the day is complete. The water has flowed, the plants have been tended, the stones have been swept, and tomorrow it will all happen again. This cycle of routine is what gives the garden its power. It is not a place of grand events. It is a place of small, beautiful repetitions. It is the cumulative effect of 1,000 quiet days that creates the deep, resonant peace you feel as you walk here. Think about the feeling of the smooth, worn stone of a garden bench. It has been sat upon by countless people over hundreds of years. Each person brought their own thoughts, their own worries, their own joys to this spot, and the stone held them all. The stone remains, cool and indifferent, yet supportive. The garden is a place where human life is measured against the life of the trees and the stones. And in that comparison, our worries seem small and fleeting. The routine of the garden outlasts us all. The water will always find its way. The hedges will always seek the light. In these ancient spaces, the people understood that we are what we do every day. If we spend our days in a place of beauty and order, we become participants in that beauty. The act of trimming a plant is an act of participating in its growth. The act of clearing a water channel is an act of participating in the flow of life. This daily participation created a sense of belonging that is rare in our modern world. They didn't just look at the garden. They were part of its breath, part of its slow, seasonal heartbeat. As you drift further into this vision of the past, imagine the sound of a gate being latched for the night. It is a solid, metallic click that echoes in the stillness. The garden is now a world unto itself, closed off from the outside. The routine shifts from the active to the passive. Now it is the turn of the plants to grow, the water to settle, and the earth to rest. The repetition of the night is just as important as the repetition of the day. It is the time of silence and shadow, the time when the garden dreams of the next morning. The stone paths, now dark and cool, wait for the first footsteps of the next day. The water channels, now silver under the moon, continue their low, constant hum. The trimmed plants stand in their perfect shapes, holding the stillness. There is a profound sense of continuity here. Nothing is ever truly finished in a garden. It is only ever in a state of becoming. The routine is the thread that holds this becoming together. It is the steady hand that guides the wildness into grace. As you settle deeper into your own rest, let the rhythm of the ancient garden routine become your own. Imagine the steady flow of the water in your veins. Imagine the solidity of the stone in your bones. Imagine the quiet growth of the leaves in your mind. You are part of a long, unbroken chain of peace. You are part of the daily life of the garden, even now, across the distance of centuries. The repetition of the breath is your own garden task. In and out, like the water in the well. Like the shadow on the stone, the people of the ancient world would lie down in their homes near the garden, and the last thing they would hear was the sound of the wind in the palms or the splash of the fountain. They knew that while they slept, the garden would continue its work. The roots would push deeper into the soil. The buds would prepare to open. The water would keep moving. This knowledge allowed them to sleep deeply, without fear. They knew they were part of a system that worked, a system of order and beauty that would be there when they woke up. You can feel that same security now. The world is being cared for. The routine is holding. The garden is safe. The stones are steady. The water is clear. There is nothing you need to do but let the slow, repetitive thoughts of the garden carry you away. Think of the gardener's broom sweeping the dust. Think of the water flowing through the blue tiles. Think of the sun-warmed brick. These are the textures of a life lived in harmony with the earth. The time in the garden moves like a deep, slow river. It is not a line. It is a circle. Each day is a return to the beginning. Each spring is a return to the green. Each night is a return to the silence. In this circular time, there is no such thing as being late. The moon continues its slow journey across the arch of the sky, and as the light shifts, the rigid lines of the earlier gardens begin to soften. We move now into a world where the human hand seeks to follow the curves of the earth rather than dictate them. This is the garden of the natural flow, where symmetry is replaced by a much deeper, much older kind of balance. In these spaces, there are no straight paths to follow. Instead, there are winding trails that disappear behind a cluster of bamboo or follow the gentle bend of a stream. This is a place for the slow observer, for the one who understands that a curve is the shortest distance between the heart and the peace it seeks. Imagine the sound of your footsteps on a path of soft, crushed pine needles. It is a quiet, cushioned sound, almost like a whisper. The path does not lead you directly to your destination. It meanders. It turns to show you a single moss-covered stone. It bends to reveal a waterfall that sounds like soft lace being torn. This is the art of hidden beauty. In these gardens, you are not meant to see everything at once. You are meant to discover it, piece by piece, as you move at the pace of the falling leaf. The gardeners of these wonders understood that the mind finds rest when it is invited to wonder, rather than told where to look. The balance here is found in the relationship between the water, the stone, and the plants. It is a triangular conversation that has been going on for millennia. The stone is the bone of the garden solid, unchanging and ancient. It provides the foundation. The water is the blood moving, flowing, and bringing life to every corner. And the plants are the skin and the breath soft, changing with the seasons, and filling the air with the scent of green growth. When you look at a large, grey boulder sitting at the edge of a pond, you see how it has been placed there to anchor the space. It looks as if it has been there since the beginning of time. It is heavy and silent, and it balances the fluid, shifting energy of the water. Think about the way the water moves in this natural flow. It does not stay within the blue tiles of a straight channel. It carves its own way through the landscape. It pools in hollows where the koi fish swim in slow, golden circles. It spills over flat rocks in wide, thin veils. The sound is more complex here. It is not just a single note. It is a symphony of drips, gurgles, and splashes. You can spend an hour just listening to the different voices of the water. There is the deep, hollow sound of water falling into a deep basin. There is the high, bright tinkling of water moving over small pebbles. Each sound is a layer of calm, folding over you like the petals of a lotus flower. As you walk these curving paths, your body begins to sway slightly with the turns. You are no longer moving in a mechanical way. You are flowing with the landscape. You pass a grove of maples, their leaves so delicate they look like stars made of silk. In the moonlight, they are a pale, ghostly silver. You reach out and touch a branch, and the movement is so slow that the tree doesn't even shiver. You feel the smoothness of the bark and the coolness of the air that clings to the leaves. This is the calm observation that the garden demands. It asks you to look so closely that you see the veins in a leaf and the grain in a stone. The silence here is not empty. It is a rich, textured silence made of 1,000 small things. It is the silence of the moss growing over the roots of a pine tree. It is the silence of the water lilies waiting for the sun. It is the silence of the stone lantern, its small flame flickering behind a screen of paper. You find a wooden bridge that arches over a pond, its shape reflecting in the dark water to form a perfect circle. You stand on the highest point of the bridge and look down. The water is a dark, bottomless mirror. You see the reflection of the moon, and you see the reflection of yourself. For a moment, it is hard to tell which world is real and which is the reflection. They are both equally still. They are both equally peaceful. The ancient people who created these gardens believed that nature was the greatest teacher. They did not try to improve upon it. They tried to distill it. They took the essence of a mountain and turned it into a stone. They took the essence of an ocean and turned it into a pond. Walking through this garden is like walking through the entire world in miniature. You feel the vastness of the mountains in the height of the trees. You feel the depth of the sea in the stillness of the water. And yet, it is all contained within the walls of this sanctuary. It is a manageable world, a world where you are safe to let your thoughts drift and your heart grow quiet. The repetition in this garden is found in the seasons, but tonight it is found in the slow, circular movement of the water. You follow a stream back to its source, a small spring bubbling up from between two stones. The water is perfectly clear, perfectly cold. It has come from deep within the earth, carrying with it the stillness of the underground. As it emerges into the garden, it brings that stillness with it. You watch a single bubble rise to the surface and pop, a tiny sound in the immense quiet of the night. You feel your own thoughts doing the same, rising to the surface, appearing for a moment, and then disappearing back into the depths. The stone lanterns are spaced along the path, providing just enough light to see the next few steps. They do not illuminate the whole garden. They leave the shadows intact. The shadows are important. They provide a place for the imagination to rest. They provide a home for the mysteries of the night. You move from one pool of soft light to the next, a slow progression through the dark. The lanterns are made of heavy stone, carved with patterns of clouds and waves. They are the guardians of the path, their small lights like the eyes of ancient spirits watching over the garden. You find a place to sit near a dry gardener, space of raked gravel and large stones. This is the garden of the mind. The gravel has been raked into patterns of waves, encircling the stones like water around an island. There is no actual water here, yet the mind sees the flow. The eye follows the lines of the Reich, moving in slow, rhythmic circles. This is the ultimate form of calm observation. It is the observation of something that is not there, yet is felt deeply. The stones are like thoughts that have become solid and still. The gravel is the movement of the universe around them. You sit and watch the patterns in the moonlight, letting the geometry of the sand settle into your soul. The air in this part of the garden is very still. The tall bamboo stalks stand together in a thick grove, their stems looking like green pipes in the dark. Every now and then, a soft breeze moves through the tops of the bamboo, and they lean into each other with a dry, wooden creak. It is a lonely, beautiful sound, like an old door opening in a quiet house. It is the only sound in the grove. You breathe in the scent of the bamboo, a clean, grassy smell that is refreshing and light. You feel as if you were being purified by the air, as if the garden is washing away the dust of the world with every breath you take. The curving paths lead you back toward the water. The pond is surrounded by weeping willows, their long, thin branches hanging down to touch the surface. They look like green rain frozen in time. You walk beneath them, the leaves brushing against your hair with a touch as light as air. You find a flat stone at the water's edge and sit down, your feet just inches from the dark surface. A small frog sits on a nearby rock, its throat pulsing with a slow, steady rhythm. You watch the frog, and the frog watches the water. You are both part of the same silence. You are both waiting for nothing. This is the gift of the natural flow. It does not ask you to achieve anything. It does not ask you to learn anything. It only asks you to be. It provides the water, the stone, and the plants, and it invites you to find your own balance among them. You feel the weight of your body on the stone. You feel the movement of the air on your skin. You feel the flow of the water in your mind. Everything is in balance. Everything is at rest. The garden is a perfect machine of peace, and it is working on you right now, turning your tension into softness and your noise into quiet. The stones in the path are cool now, and the moss is damp with the night's dew. You notice the way the moss has grown over the edges of the stones, blurring the lines between the path and the earth. This is the goal of the garden, to blur the lines. To blur the line between the human and the natural. To blur the line between the inside and the outside. You feel yourself merging with the garden. Your breath is the wind. Your blood is the stream. Your bones are the stone. In this state of total immersion, there is no more fear, no more hurry, no more self. There is only the flow. The moon is reflecting. In a small stone basin, a sukubai, where the water is constantly refreshed by a bamboo pipe. The water falls with a steady, hollow thump drip, thump drip. It is a sound that marks the passage of time without rushing it. You watch the reflection of the moon in the basin. The water ripples as each drop falls, and the moon shivers and then reforms. This is the cycle of the universe, the breaking and the reforming, the movement and the stillness. You watch it over and over again, the repetition acting as a deep and powerful lullaby. As you sit by the basin, you notice the small plants that grow in the cracks of the stone. They are tiny, delicate ferns and mountain grasses, surviving on just a bit of moisture and a sliver of light. Their persistence is a beautiful thing. The moon has found its resting place at the very peak of the sky, and beneath its steady, silver gaze, the garden has entered a state of absolute stillness. We move now into the quietest corners of these ancient wonders, where movement is so minimal it becomes almost invisible. This is the realm of the moss and the stone, where time does not tick but stretches, thin and translucent, like a thread of silk pulled across the night. Imagine a courtyard where the ground is entirely covered in a thick, deep carpet of emerald moss. It is so soft, so plush, that it seems to swallow the very light. There are no paths here, only a few stepping stones, their surfaces flat and grey, rising out of the green like islands in a frozen sea. As you place your foot upon the first stone, the silence around you seems to deepen. It is a heavy, physical silence, a silence that has been building for centuries. The moss does not rustle. It does not crunch. It simply exists, breathing in the dampness of the night air. This is a place where the world has slowed to the pace of a growing root. The stones have been here longer than any human memory. They are cold, solid, and certain. They do not move, and in their presence, you find that you do not wish to move either. You stand on the stone, perfectly balanced, and let the stillness of the garden seep into your skin. Think about the life of the moss. It is a life of total patience. It does not strive for the sun like the tall palms. It is content in the shadows, in the damp, in the quiet. It clings to the stones, softening their sharp edges, turning the hard world into something gentle and receptive. You can feel that gentleness here. The air is cool and moist, carrying the faint, earthy scent of ancient soil. It is a scent that grounds you, a scent that tells your body it is safe to let go of the day. You are standing in a space where nothing is expected of you. The moss does not ask you to walk. The stones do not ask you to speak. They only ask you to be. Beyond the mossy courtyard, there is a pond. It is a small, quiet pond, tucked away beneath the overhanging branches of a dark pine. The water here does not flow. It does not bubble or splash. It sits in a basin of smooth rock, as still as a sheet of black glass. If a single drop of dew were to fall from a needle of the pine tree, it would take a lifetime for the ripples to reach the edge. You walk toward this pond, your movements so slow that the air barely moves around you. You sit on a flat rock at the water's edge, your hands resting softly in your lap. You look into the water and you see the universe. The reflection of the moon in the pond is so perfect, so steady that it looks more real than the moon itself. The stars are tiny, unmoving sparks of white in the deep black of the water. As you watch them, the concept of time begins to change. A minute feels like an hour. An hour feels like a second. The garden has unhooked you from the clock of the world. Here, there is only the slow expansion of the shadows and the gradual cooling of the stone. You feel as if you are becoming a part of the landscape. Your stillness matches the stillness of the water. Your silence matches the silence of the moss. In this state of minimal movement, your senses become incredibly fine. You can hear the sound of the pine tree as it holds its needles. You can hear the weight of the water as it presses against the stone basin. You can hear the silence itself, a low, resonant hum that seems to come from the center of the earth. This is the sound of the ancient horticultural wonders when they are at rest. It is a sound of profound contentment. The garden is satisfied. The water is where it belongs. The stones are where they were meant to be. And you, sitting by the pond, are exactly where you are meant to be. Think of the hands that placed these stones. They were hands that understood the power of the static. They knew that by placing a stone just so, they could create a focus for the wandering mind. They knew that by encouraging the moss to grow, they were inviting the peace of the deep forest into the heart of the city. These gardeners were masters of the quiet. They did not want to impress you with grand fountains or bright colors. They wanted to heal you with the shade and the stone. You are receiving that healing now, in the middle of the night. In the heart of the stillness, the moss spreads up the sides of the stone basin, a living velvet that drinks from the invisible moisture of the air. It is a slow, steady pulse of life. You reach out a finger and touch the moss. It is cool and damp, and it gives slightly under your touch. It feels like the breath of the earth. In this contact, you feel a surge of calm. It is the calm of things that do not need to move to be important. It is the calm of the foundation. The garden is teaching you that there is a great power in being still. There is a great power in just sitting and watching the moon reflect in a pool of water. The time stretches gently, like a slow-motion dream. You watch the way a shadow from a pine branch moves across the moss. It moves so slowly that you cannot see it moving, yet every time you look, it has found a new place to rest. This is the only change in the garden. Everything else is frozen in a beautiful, green eternity. You find yourself closing your eyes, but the image of the pond remains in your mind. You see the black water, the silver moon, and the emerald moss. You feel the cold stone beneath you and the cool air on your face. You are a part of the stillness now. In the ancient world, these quiet ponds were places of pilgrimage for the weary. People would travel for days just to sit by a pool like this, to let the silence wash away the noise of their lives. They knew that the water has a memory, and that by sitting near it, they could share in its ancient peace. The water in this pond has seen many nights like this. It has reflected many moons and many stars. It has held the silence for 1,000 years, and it is holding it for you now. You can feel the weight of that peace. It is a heavy, comforting weight that keeps you anchored to the present moment. The minimal movement of the garden is a form of grace. A single leaf falls from the pine tree, drifting through the air in a slow, spiraling dance. It takes a long time to reach the surface of the pond. When it finally touches the water, it does not sink. It floats, a tiny brown boat on a sea of black glass. The water barely ripples. The leaf comes to rest, and the stillness returns as absolute as it was before. You watch this leaf, and you feel a sense of profound rightness. Everything is in its place. Everything is happening as it should. The moss continues to grow in the dark, a silent expansion of green. The stones continue to hold their positions, silent anchors in the stream of time. The pond continues to reflect the sky, a silent mirror of the infinite. You are the witness to this silence. You are the one who hears the song of the stone. It is a song without notes, a song of pure existence. As you listen to it, your mind becomes as clear and as still as the water in the basin. There are no thoughts, only observations. There are no worries, only the feeling of the moss and the stone. The journey through the horticultural wonders has brought us to this point of total quiet. We have moved through the grand avenues, the flowing channels, and the curving paths, and now we have found the center. The center is not a place of action. It is a place of rest. It is the mossy courtyard and the silent pond. It is the place where the world stops and the soul begins. You are at that center now. You are resting in the heart of the ancient peace, where the time stretches gently and the silence is your only companion. As the moon begins its long, slow descent, the garden remains unchanged. The shadows are longer, the air is cooler, but the stillness remains. It is a stillness that does not depend on the light. It is a stillness that is built into the very bones of the garden. You feel that stillness in your own bones. You feel it in the slow, steady rhythm of your breath. You are a part of the wonder. You are a part of the history. You are the silence between the footsteps, and you are the moss on the stone. The pine tree above you is a dark, protective presence. Its needles are soft against the sky, creating a textured shadow that falls across your shoulders. You lean back against the trunk, feeling the rough bark and the solid strength of the wood. The tree has stood here through storms and heat, through years of drought and years of rain, and it has never lost its calm. It offers that calm to you now, a gift from the ancient world. You accept it, letting the strength of the tree become your own strength. You are steady. You are still. You are at rest. The moss at your feet is a reminder of the beauty of the small. In the grand scheme of the garden, the moss might seem unimportant, but it is the moss that gives the courtyard its soul. It is the moss that creates the silence. It is the moss that holds the moisture and the memory of the rain. You look down at the green carpet and you feel a sense of wonder at its simple, perfect existence. It does not need to be anything other than what it is. And you, too, do not need to be anything other than what you are. You are a part of the garden, and that is enough. The pond is a dark eye, looking up at the heavens. It sees the stars that we cannot see. It knows the secrets of the deep night. As you sit by its side, you feel as if you are being invited into those secrets. You are being invited to let go of the surface of things and to sink into the depths of the quiet. The water is waiting. The stillness is waiting. The garden is waiting. There is no hurry. There is all the time in the world. The night is long, and the peace is infinite. The stillness of the mossy courtyard lingers in the air, a heavy and sweet presence that seems to slow the very heartbeat of the night. As we move from the silent pond, we begin to think about the hands that kept this peace, the generations of gardeners who understood that a garden is not a place that is finished, but a place that is continuously born through the repetition of care. This is the story of quiet devotion, of the simple acts that, when repeated day after day, year after year, build a cathedral of green. Imagine the gardener of the ancient world waking before the sun has even thought of rising. The world is grey and silver, and the only sound is the soft, rhythmic crunch of sandals on gravel. This is the first step in a day made of 1,000 small, necessary movements. There is a profound peace in the routine of planting. Imagine a small wooden tray filled with seedlings, their leaves tiny and translucent in the pre-dawn light. The gardener kneels on the damp earth, the coolness of the soil seeping through their robes. With a small, smooth trowel made of bronze or wood, they make a hole in the earth. It is a simple movement. Dig, place, cover, press. Then they move a few inches to the right and do it again. Dig, place, cover, press. This repetition is not a chore. It is a way of anchoring the self to the seasons. Each seed is a promise, and each hole in the earth is a gesture of faith. You can feel that faith here in the garden, a steady, pulsing energy that flows from the hands of the planter into the deep, dark heart of the soil. The care of the water is perhaps the most repetitive and most beautiful task of all. In the dry lands, the water must be guided with a constant and gentle eye. Imagine the gardener walking along the narrow stone channels, their bare feet feeling the temperature of the water as it flows past. Every few yards, they stop to clear a stray leaf or a small pebble that has broken the perfect line of the flow. They use a long wooden rake to smooth the silt at the bottom of the pool. The movement of the rake is slow and steady, creating a soft, rhythmic hush-hush sound against the stone. This is the routine of order. By keeping the water clear, the gardener keeps the mind clear. The clarity of the pool is a reflection of the clarity of the soul. Think about the devotion required to trim a hedge into a perfect straight line. The gardener stands before the wall of green, their shears held with a light but firm grip. They do not look at the whole hedge at once. They look only at the few inches in front of them. Snip, snip, snip. The small leaves fall to the ground like green snow, making a soft, dry sound as they land. This is the art of focus. When you are trimming a hedge, there is no past and there is no future. There is only the line. There is only the movement of the blades. This repetition brings a sense of absolute order to the world. It says that despite the wildness of the forest beyond the walls, here there is a place for everything. Here the world follows a plan. The order of the garden is a balm for the spirit. We live in a world that is often chaotic and unpredictable, but the garden offers a different story. It tells us that if we water a plant, it will grow. It tells us that if we sweep a path, it will be clean. It tells us that the seasons will always return. This reliability is built through the routine of care. The ancient gardeners did not seek to change the world in a single day. They sought to improve it by a single inch every single morning. They understood that the great horticultural wonders were not created by grand gestures, but by the accumulation of 1,000,000 small, devoted acts. You can feel the weight of those acts as you walk the paths. Every stone is where it is because someone placed it there. Every tree is tall because someone protected it when it was small. Imagine the gardener moving through the orchard, checking each fruit for ripeness. They touch the skin of a pomegranate, feeling its leathery surface and its hidden weight. They do not pull the fruit. They wait for the moment it is ready to give itself. This is the patience of the garden. It is a patience that is learned through years of watching and waiting. It is a quiet devotion to the timing of the earth. The gardener knows that you cannot rush the ripening of a fruit any more than you can rush the rising of the moon. This acceptance of the natural pace of things is what brings the deepest peace. It is the peace of knowing that you are a participant in a cycle that is much larger and much older than yourself. The repetition of the daily sweep is another layer of the garden's calm. Every evening, as the shadows grow long, the gardener takes a broom made of bundled tall grasses and begins to sweep the courtyard. The sound is a low, constant whisper. Swoosh, swoosh. They move the fallen dust and the dried leaves into a neat pile. This act of cleaning is an act of respect. It is a way of saying that the garden is a sacred space, a place that deserves to be seen in its most perfect form. As the broom moves over the stone, it leaves behind a pattern of fine lines, a visual record of the work. You can follow these lines with your eyes, letting them lead you into a state of quiet reflection. The simple planting of a rose, bush, or a row of lilies is an act that connects the gardener to the future. They dig the hole deep, mixing the soil with rich compost and a little bit of water. They place the roots carefully, spreading them out so they have room to breathe. As they firm the soil around the base of the plant, they are not just planting a flower. They are planting a legacy. They know that they may not be the ones to see the full glory of the bloom, but someone else will. This selflessness is at the heart of the garden's peace. It is the devotion of one generation to the next, expressed through the medium of the green and the growing dot. Think about the quiet order of the herb garden. Here, the plants are arranged in neat squares or circles, each one labeled with its name and its use. The gardener moves among them, pinching off a dead leaf here, pulling a small weed there. The scent of the herbs lavender, sage, hyssop, and mint rises up in a fragrant cloud as they work. This is the routine of the senses, the touch of the leaves, the smell of the oils, the sight of the purple and blue flowers. All of it works together to ground the gardener in the present moment. There is no room for worry when your hands are full of lavender. There is no room for hurry when you are waiting for the mint to dry. The routine of the garden is like a heartbeat. It is steady, it is reliable, and it is necessary for life. Even when the gardener is not working, the routine continues in the mind. They plan the next planting. They listen for the sound of the wind that might signal a storm. They watch the birds to see where the insects are. This constant, quiet engagement with the environment is a form of love. It is a devotion that doesn't need an audience. It is enough to know that the garden is healthy. It is enough to know that the water is flowing as you drift through this history of care. Imagine the feeling of the gardener's tools. The wooden handles are smooth and dark, polished by the oil from human hands over many years. They feel familiar and right in the palm. The use of these tools is a repetition of its own, the way the spade enters the earth, the way the shears meet the leaf, the way the rake levels the sand. These movements are engraved in the body's memory. They become a form of dance, a slow-motion choreography of grace and purpose. You can see this grace in the way the ancient gardens were shaped. They were shaped by people who moved with the rhythm of the work. The silence of the garden is the fruit of this labor. Because the paths are swept, the feet can move silently. Because the hedges are trimmed, the wind can move softly. Because the water is clear, the reflections can be still. The order that the gardener brings to the space is the foundation upon which the piece is built. Without the routine, the garden would return to the wild. Without the devotion, the wonder would fade. It is the human presence, moving slowly and carefully through the green, that turns a piece of land into a sanctuary. Think about the repetition of the evening watering. The sun is low, and the air has begun to cool. The gardener carries a heavy ceramic jar of water, pouring a steady stream at the base of each precious plant. The water darkens the soil, making it smell of life and dampness. You can hear the rhythmic glug 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 as the water leaves the jar. It is a sound of abundance. Even in the driest desert, the gardener ensures that there is enough for the green to thrive. This act of nourishment is the ultimate expression of care. It is a quiet, daily miracle. The garden is a place where time is measured in growth. You notice that the vine has climbed another inch up the wall. You notice that the bud has begun to show its color. These small changes are the rewards of the routine. They are the signs that the devotion is working. In the ancient world, people would mark their lives by these changes. A child might be born when the almond trees bloom. A treaty might be signed when the harvest is gathered. The garden provides the framework for human life, a steady and beautiful background to the drama of history. As the night grows deeper, the work of the day is held in the stillness. The rows of plants, the clean paths, and the flowing water are all resting. The gardener, too, is resting, but their influence remains. The garden is a living testament to their care. It is a space that has been breathed into existence by the repetition of the breath and the movement of the hand. You can feel that human presence in the way the stones are laid and the trees are spaced. It is a gentle, guiding presence that doesn't dominate, but supports. The moon is very low now, almost touching the dark line of the distant hills, and the light it casts is a faint, pearly grey that softens every edge until the garden looks like a memory of itself. We move now into the deepest sense of time, where the gardens we have walked through become a bridge across the centuries, a lasting presence that has held its breath while empires rose and fell into the dust. This is the feeling of walking through a shade that has existed for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, a cool and ancient air that has been passed down from generation to generation like a sacred secret. Imagine standing beneath a cedar tree that was planted by someone whose name has been lost to the wind, yet whose intent remains in every thick, dark branch and every fragrant needle. You are breathing the same peace that they breathed. You are resting in the same shadow that they created with a single, small sapling so very long ago. The rhythm of the garden is a rhythm that spans lifetimes, a slow and majestic unfolding that makes our own days feel like the flicker of a candle. As you walk along the old stone walls, you can feel the weight of this continuity. The stones are covered in lichens that take decades to grow a single inch. Silver and gold patterns that map the slow passage of time. The air here feels thicker, more settled, as if the silence of 1,000 nights has accumulated in the corners of the courtyard. Every step you take is a step through history, but it is a history without the noise of battles or the clamor of kings. It is a history of quiet growth, of the steady pulse of the seasons, and of the enduring human desire to find a place of stillness. You are part of a long, unbroken lineage of people who have sought the shade, and in this moment, the past and the present are fused into a single, quiet breath. Think about the feeling of a path that has been worn smooth by the feet of thousands of people. The marble is slightly hollowed in the center, a soft curve created by centuries of gentle movement. When you place your foot in that curve, you are connecting with everyone who has come before you. You are joining a procession of seekers, all moving toward the same water, all seeking the same relief from the heat of the world. This is the calm that is passed from hand to hand, from heart to heart. It is a legacy of tranquility. The gardener who pruned the vine 100 years ago did so with the knowledge that someone they would never meet would eventually sit beneath its canopy. That someone is you. You are the recipient of a centuries-old kindness, a gift of green and quiet that has been tended and protected just for this moment of your life. The trees in these ancient horticultural wonders are the true keepers of time. Their roots reach down into the soil of antiquity, drinking from the same deep wells that nourished the first gardens of the world. Imagine a great oak or a twisted olive whose trunk is so wide it would take 3 people to encircle it. The bark is like the skin of the earth itself, rough and weathered, holding the scars of ancient storms and the warmth of 1,000 summers. When you lean your head against such a tree, you are leaning against time. You feel the slow, steady vibration of a life that moves at a pace we can barely comprehend. The tree does not hurry. It does not worry about the passing of the hours. It simply exists, a monument to the power of staying in one place and growing toward the light. The shade of these ancient trees is a special kind of cool. It is a deep, resonant coldness that seems to reach into your very bones, washing away the fever of the modern world. It is a shade that has been nurtured and guarded, a sanctuary that has been kept alive through the devotion of countless anonymous hands. You walk into this shade and you feel the temperature drop, not just in the air, but in your soul. The light here is dappled and soft, filtered through layers of leaves that have seen the world change beyond recognition. Yet here, inside the garden, nothing has changed. The same birds nest in the branches. The same moss grows on the roots. The same silence hangs in the air. This permanence is the greatest wonder of all. As the moon begins to disappear, the garden becomes a landscape of pure presence. You are not just visiting a place. You are entering a state of being that has existed for as long as humans have loved the earth. The calm of the garden is a spiritual inheritance. It is the peace of the monk in his cloister, the poet in his bower, and the gardener in his grove. All of their reflections, all of their moments of clarity are still here, vibrating in the leaves and the water. You are walking through a field of collective rest. You are being supported by the stillness of all those who came before. The air is heavy with the scent of the past, the smell of stone and damp earth, and the sweet, lingering perfume of flowers that have bloomed in the same spot for 1,000 years. The water in the ancient channels carries the same continuity. The sound of the drip into the stone basin is the same sound that was heard in the courts of Babylon or the villas of Rome. It is a repetitive liquid music that transcends time. You listen to it and you realize that your own life is a part of this flow. You are a drop of water in the long stream of history, moving through the garden, finding your place in the pool, and then moving on. But while you are here, in the shade, you are eternal. You are as constant as the stone and as steady as the tree. The garden allows you to step out of the rush of time and into the stillness of the forever. The feeling of walking through this ancient shade is like being wrapped in a cloak of velvet. It is soft, it is dark, and it is infinitely comforting. You move with a slowness that feels like a prayer. There is no need to reach the end of the path. There is no need to see the next courtyard. The beauty is right here, in the texture of the bark and the silence of the moss. You find a stone bench that has been silvered by the weather and worn smooth by time. You sit down and you feel the weight of the centuries settling into your limbs. You are resting on the foundation of history. You are being held by the devotion of the ages. The garden is a lasting presence because it is a dream that we all share. It is the dream of a world where everything is in its place, where the water is always cool and the shade is always deep. Every generation has contributed to this dream, adding a stone, planting a seed, clearing a path. And because we all dream the same dream, the garden never truly dies. It lives in the care we give it and the peace we find within it. You are the dreamer now. You are the one who is keeping the garden alive by being still within it. Your rest is a form of preservation. Your quiet is a form of care. Think about the seeds that are sleeping beneath your feet. Some of them may have been there for decades, waiting for the right moment to wake up. They carry within them the blueprint of the ancient world, the memory of the first flowers. When they finally bloom, they will be the same as their ancestors. This is the immortality of the green world. It is a cycle that returns to itself, a repetition that never grows old. You are part of that cycle too. Your need for rest is as old as the earth, and the garden is here to fulfill it, as it has for everyone who ever walked its paths. The shadows of the night are growing thin as the world prepares for the dawn. But the silence remains absolute. It is a silence that has been cultivated like a rare orchid. It is a silence that is protected by the walls and the trees. You breathe it in, letting it fill the empty spaces in your mind. You feel the peace of the generations flowing into you, a gentle and persistent stream of calm. You are the heir to this tranquility. You are the owner of this quiet. The lasting presence of the garden is a reminder that beauty is worth protecting. It is a reminder that peace is a long-term project. It requires patience and routine and a love for things that grow slowly. You feel that patience in your own heart now. You are no longer in a hurry for the story to end. You are no longer in a hurry for the sleep to come. You are content to just be here in the ancient shade, in the lasting presence of the wonder. The garden has all the time in the world, and so do you. As the stars fade into the soft grey of the coming light, the trees stand tall and silent, their branches reaching for the heavens. They are the elders of the garden, the ones who remember everything. They watch over you with a quiet and steady love. They have seen many nights, and they will see many days, but they are always here in the present moment, offering their shade to whoever needs it. You feel their presence like a warm hand on your shoulder, a comforting assurance that you are not alone in the dark. The moon is gone now, leaving only the soft pre-dawn light to guide your dreams. The garden is a world of shadows and whispers, a place where the air is still and the earth is warm. You are sinking into the moss, letting the ground support you, letting the trees watch over you. You are at the end of the walk. but you are at the beginning of the rest. The journey through the horticultural wonders has brought you to this point of total surrender. Good night.